Welcome back for a new top 5 list. With that said, as always, Goku's on BBC. Music in the background is from Silent Hill 2. So, with that said, this time around, looking at personal perspective, anyways, top 10 game consoles of the 1990s. Now, with that said, keep in mind these are strictly consoles that I've personally played, whether I owned or I played at a friend's or relative's house, but I do have first-hand experience with. Now, with that said, coming in at number 5 is actually a tie between first the Nintendo 64 and the Panasonic 3DO. Comes in tied at number 5. Few for specific reasons. Now, I will say, out of the ones I've had the most experience with, arguably, the N64 is the one I have the most personal experience with. But that's just how that is, to each their own. With that said, each also has specific games, I would say, that are best for each platform. Like, for instance, with the 3DO, it has great games like probably one of the definitive versions of ways to play Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, as well as Road Rash, as well as the original Need for Speed game, or as well as, I would say, games like Dragon's Lair and many other classics. Now, with the N64, you have stuff like specifically Killer Instinct Gold, WCW NWO Revenge, WWF No Mercy, Super Mario 64, or how about while at it, a few other little games like Ocarina of Time, the original Super Smash Bros., and many other classics. Coming in, however, at number 4, you see right here, symbol 4. At number 4 goes to the Sega Saturn, a console that, as time has gone on, I have come to appreciate more and more and like more and more throughout the years. And with that said, keep in mind when I say top 5 of the 1990s, it means it had to have been released in the 90s. Which is why Sega Genesis was number 1 for the 80s, because it was actually released in the late 80s. So with that said, the Saturn specifically excels in superb, great fighting games. That's the reason why I love it so much. Because of Vampire Hunter, Vampire Savior, Panzer Dragoon games, arguably, as well as many other great fighting games out there. And it would also be one of the first experiences I would actually have with Resident Evil. With that said, coming in at number 3 is the SNES or Super Famicom, wherever you live. Coming at 3 is the Super Nintendo. Specifically for me, the reason why pretty high is because of specific stuff like Mega Man X being one of the biggies, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, as well as great games like, I would say, if you're willing to talk, also the original Killer Instinct, as well as Super Metroid, as well as many other superb great games. Super Punch Out, you name it. And then, of course, can't forget Final Fantasy 2, aka 4, and Final Fantasy 3, aka 6, and of course, Chrono Trigger. And Turtles in Time. With that said, coming at number 2, favorite console of the 90s, honor goes to the PS1. PlayStation 1 is arguably my second favorite of the entire decade. Unrivaled, specifically games like Tekken 2, Tekken 3, as well as, of course, my favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy 8, as well as Soul Blade, as well as games like Street Fighter Alpha 1 and 2, as well as many other greats like real nostalgia stuff like Lunar Silver Star Story, as well as many other great JRPGs, and of course some great platformers like Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3, as well as some good racing games like Need for Speed 3, Hot Pursuit, and many other genres. out there, as well as you have Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy Anthology, Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, that is where the PS1 really excels. Is I think specifically fighting games and RPGs are where it really does excellent. As well as you have the classic Spyro games. Also, I will argue Mega Man 8, Mega Man X4, Mega Man X5, all great platformers. And with that said, coming in at number one, unrivaled number one, the Sega Dreamcast is by bar none my favorite console of all time for many reasons. I have a deep seated love and passion for the console for many of the games. Like specifically the original Soul Calibur, which remains to this day my favorite 3D fighter of all time. And it probably never will be surpassed. As well as many other great games like Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, or how about games like Street Fighter 3 Double Impact, or for some of you out there, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, or how about Capcom vs. SNK 1 and 2, or how about Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2, or King of Fighters 2000, and many other superb games out there. But arguably, the Dreamcast holds a very special place for me, and I think for some people, especially other great games like Sonic Adventure, Crazy Taxi, Jet Run Radio, nowadays just called Jet Set Radio, but whatever. I still remember by Jet Run Radio, as well as many other great games, as well as games like Project Justice, or games, well, that unfortunately I only have in collections. I don't actually have in traditional game physical disc, unfortunately, and that being Gigawing, because look at the prices of Gigawing and you'll understand why. Also, one of probably the greatest JRPGs of all time is on the Dreamcast, and that is Skies of Arcadia. You want great horror games? Resident Evil Code Veronica, or Blue Stinger, which is a crazy out there survival horror game. Definitely not your traditional survival horror game, bar none. But I love it because of that. You want a good racing game? Okay, got it one for you. Hydro Thunder, one of the best racing games of all time, at least in my personal perspective as someone who is not the biggest racing game fan. Hydro Thunder is a game that I will pretty much always remember forever, as well as many other superb great games out there, and some actually good compilations as well. I think one of the greatest puzzle sort of games of all time people don't really talk about, Sega Swirl. And if you don't know, look it up. And seriously, if you get a chance to play Sega Swirl, it's an amazing, fun blast game to play, bar none. And Capcom really shown a lot of love to this console. Also, another great game I highly recommend if you can chance, try it out. Cannon Spike is another pretty fun game, but don't try to buy it, because take my word, it's ridiculously overpriced now. But with that said, that is it. Those are my personal top 5 favorite consoles of the 1990s. Stay tuned in the future for my top 5 favorite consoles of the night or from the 2000s. So with that said, and of course eventually 2010s, and yeah, I will do probably sometime in the future do a specific handheld of just my top 5 favorite handhelds of all time, at least most up-to-date 2024 edition. With that said, I'll see y'all soon. Hopefully enjoyed the Silent Hill music in the background, and stay safe, as this world just keeps getting nuttier and nuttier by the day. Also working on some more Yu-Gi-Oh content as well, and also right now I am recording story mode of Tekken 8, so stay tuned for all that.